So today was the third installment of the pre-patch hype week for Last Epoch, and today they went over a lot of endgame balance and itemization updates, and we're going to be going over all of those in this video. Just note, season 2 for Last Epoch is coming out on April 17th, so ladies and gentlemen, it's right around the corner. The patch notes are going to be dropping on the 11th. I'm covering a lot of Last Epoch content right now, so make sure to check out the channel for some more videos, and if you guys like Last Epoch content, make sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe. And without further ado, I'm not going to waste any more of your time. Let's jump right into this. We're going to be starting with the new features, in-game crafting additions. We know players love our forge, or more accurately our crafting mechanic, and in season 2 the Weaver has blessed us with 6 new in-game crafting methods to aid you on your journey through Atera. First, starting off with set shattering, which this is insanely cool, by the way. I got to see this during the podcast that Talkative Try had, and man, it looks insanely cool. They literally are taking the barriers and limitations off of crafting. Being able to use set items to build something instead of set items just being trash if it wasn't good for your build. Insanely cool. Anyway, going into it, a battle with emboldened foes bolstered by barrages of burning projectiles rages as you break through barricades and beat back mobs to cross the Great Bridge. Once victory is yours and all enemies have been vanquished, you will find what they fought so hard to protect, the Forge of Shattering. And Forge of Shattering is going to be something very important to season 2. Here you can shatter your set items or set shards, which can then be used to create reforged set items. Each set item will create a specific set affix based on the set item shattered. For example, shattering Villataria's Storm Downfall Staff would provide a 1 through 4 Villataria's Storm Downfall reforged shards. So that's how many you could get. You could get 1 through 4 of the shards, and that can be crafted onto a staff to turn it into Villataria's Storm Downfall reforged. As with normal affixes, set affixes can be crafted up to tier 5. However, using the new Rune of Havoc, which shuffles all tiers of non-sealed affixes, you have the potential of reaching a tier 6 and tier 7 set affix. But how do these items apply set bonuses? When an item gains a set affix, and items can only have one type of set affix, it is considered a set item for the purpose of the set bonus, with each set affix providing 2 stats from the specific set item. Remember, like set items, reforged set items are unique enough that they cannot be combined with an actual unique in the Eternity cache to create legendary items. Now moving on to idle enchanting. After defeating the boss in a tomb or cemetery, don't just leave. In the final room, you'll find a woven enchanter, which allows you to enchant class-specific idols, adorned, grand, huge, large, ornate, with new affixes called enchanted affixes, and some Weaver's Touch. It can also be used to reroll that existing enchanted affix and Weaver's Touch for Memory Amber. And if you guys don't know, Memory Amber is a brand new currency in the game that's going to allow you to craft and build your build a little better with this new Weaver's Touch stuff and all of the new woven things and all of the new woven faction stuff. Weaver's Touch is consumed like Weaver's Will when slaying enemies to upgrade the idol further. This can upgrade the existing enchanted affixes or add an enchanted affix if there is an empty slot. Another unique property of the enchanted affixes is that these will come from a new pool of affixes that cannot be found on idols or elsewhere, and unlike standard idol affixes, they can reach tier 7. Tombs will allow you to use the Woven Enchanter once, cemeteries will allow you to use it twice, and the Woven Echoes may allow you to use it up to 4 times. This number applies to each enchant and re-enchant and can be used on different idols. For example, if an altar uses 3 uses, a player may choose to place an unenchanted idol in the enchant. For example, if the altar has 3 uses, a player may choose to place an unenchanted idol in and enchant it, then re-enchant the same idol for Memory Amber. This would count as 2 uses of the Woven Enchanter. Player could then place a different idol in the Woven Enchanter and choose to enchant or re-enchant it depending on their wishes. This would consume the 3rd use of the Woven Enchanter available to them. Once an idol is enchanted, however, re-enchanting it will remove any added enchanted affixes in unspent Weaver's Touch and grant the idol a new enchanted affix and new Weaver's Touch amount. Now, this is something interesting because there's now attribute swapping. The Observer watches all timelines, so does the Traveler. Protect the relic of the Observer in the Divine Era from Osprix, encamped in the abandoned tower, and reclaim the refortified Lich's Tower from the Imperial forces in the Imperial era. Time travel between the two towers to defeat both armies and take control of the relic of the Observer, a powerful artifact that allows you to alter attributes of your items. Once claimed, you can use the relic of the Observer to replace non-sealed attribute affixes, intelligence, strength, dexterity, and attunement with a different attribute of your choosing. The tier and roll range of the replaced affix will be preserved on the new affix. Alright, experimental crafting. The Weaver's Web has taken you to the Rune Prison Complex, a fortress from where the imprisoned exiled mages are temporarily displaced across the Terra. As you infiltrate this complex and open the rune prisons, you will draw the ire of rune wardens. Defeat them to unlock the very device rune mages use to create experimental items and craft your own. That's right, we'll be able to craft our own experimental items. Here you'll wield the arcane knowledge that led to some mages being imprisoned and exiled, and replace a prefix with an experimental affix on belts, boots, and gloves. Any item you wish to craft must have at least 2 prefixes, though the Thermargody device will not interfere with the work of other mages, so your item must not have any experimental affixes. Quality does not go unnoticed either. Chance of higher tier experimental affix outcomes increases with the combined prefix tiers. If the prefixes are exalted, tier 6 or 7, then they contribute much more to the chance of a higher tier outcome. Rerolling uniques. Ladies and gentlemen, you can finally reroll uniques. Finally, the unique you have always wanted drops, but fate has not been so kind when it comes to the implicits and affixes attached to it. Feeling of strife washes over you. Why even bother taking this item now? It's not the first time this has happened either. Fear not, traveler. The Weaver provides it as long as you offer it first. Find yourself a gauntlet of strife, Woven Echo, and prove your worth by defeating a series of bosses and their champions in order to access this sacrificial altar. Here you can sacrifice 1 copy of any unique, legendary, Weaver's Will, or set item to reroll all the implicits and affixes on a matching item. The sacrificed item must, at minimum, meet the potential of the item you wish to reroll. For example, to reroll a unique with 2 legendary potential, the sacrifice item must either have at least 2 legendary potential, or if offering a legendary item, instead at least 2 different legendary affixes for it to be considered a worthy sacrifice. Travelers should know that while the legendary potential or Weaver's Will be preserved, all affix ranges, including unique, implicit, and legendary, are rerolled. This will not change the tier of legendary affixes, only reroll their ranges within the tiers they already have. Legendary crafting potential. See that turtle of enormous girth? On his shell, he holds the earth. Through her web, find the legendary creature of a legendary crafting opportunity, where the open sea is filled with both wonder and danger. So that's pretty interesting. I think something's going to go on with water. I think there's going to be like a water map, or I don't know what's going on here, but this is quite interesting. Little riddle we got going on here. All right, let's see. Check it out here at the bottom. Once you place unique items with at least 1 legendary potential into the transmuting gem, you can take your chances at re-rolling the amount of legendary potential each item has. For each item, the new legendary potential is rolled the same way as the legendary potential for a freshly dropped unique of that type. So think carefully and pray that the Weaver blesses you. However, if the Weaver should forsake you and fail to grant your item an additional legendary potential, all legendary potential of the item will be taken by her to thank you for your offering. The Weaver will gift you a rare shard for each legendary potential that she takes. All is not lost though, as uniques with 0 legendary potential may be given to the Nemesis in the place of the Egg of the Forgotten to try and gain back the legendary potential. So you can, if you lose the legendary potential, if she takes it, you can try to get it back by giving it to the Nemesis in the place of the Egg of the Forgotten. Now we're going to be talking about new crafting materials, okay? We got some new runes, Rune of Weaving. We know that having the right gear can be an integral part of not just surviving all that Terra throws at you, but progressing on your path to save it, which is why unequipping that carefully crafted 2 times tier 7 exalted weapon to see what the Weaver might bless you with can be a tough choice. Enter the Rune of Weaving. You'll be able to place an item in your forge with this rune, where it will take each swing of the hammer as a swing or firing of your weapon, choice and transform some amount of the current Weaver's Will or Weaver's Touch on your gear or idols into additional affixes or upgrade existing affix tiers. The Rune of Havoc, you'll see it, your loot filter hasn't emphasized it because it has the affix you want. That exalted item you needed dropped and you pick it up. Tier 5, Tier 5, Tier 6, Tier 3. That one affix you wanted to be Tier 6 or higher is Tier 3 and you don't have the shards to craft it. But what you do have is the Rune of Havoc. This rune, you can shuffle the tiers of non-sealed affixes on the item with each other, guaranteeing at least one changed tier. The rolls of the affixes within their tiers are preserved even if their tier doesn't change. Also, to prevent the rune from being wasted, you will not be able to use the rune on an item if all non-sealed affixes shared the same tier. Another way to use this rune is by taking that super rare affix you only have a few of, for example, level of meteor, crafted as a tier 1 onto an item with another tier 7 affix, and then by using this Rune of Havoc, that level of meteor could very well turn into a tier 7. And then we have Rune of Redemption. You pick up that exalted item, it's triple tier 7. You have been blessed. Then you read the affixes. One of those 3 is decent, but the others, you wish they were anything else. After all, really don't need minion focus affixes if you only had a way to redeem this item. Well, enter Rune of Redemption. Change the non-sealed exalted affixes on an item while preserving the affix tiers and rolls within those tiers. The new affixes are randomly chosen from the same pool as those that can naturally spawn on the type of item when dropped from a regular enemy. Yo, these are insanely cool. I really like these runes. And I really love what they've done with the crafting system in this game. Last Epoch is literally changing the game for ARPGs. And I can't say that about a lot of games. We have a bunch of balance changes, a lot of them being around, ward and ward generation and things like that. So here they're saying the feedback we received on boss ward was substantial and divisive. While many players were in favor of the change from the dynamic damage reduction to boss ward, we also heard all the feedback on how the change affected gameplay. We have been working on some adjustments on how the boss ward mechanic is applied and reducing the frequency that players will encounter it. In Season 2, the initial decay rate of boss ward will be doubled, and it will be seen in far fewer enemies than before. It will only be found on bosses that feel like they should have it. The most notable bosses such as Aberoth, Harbingers, Shades of Orberus, and Timeline bosses keep their boss ward. However, lesser enemies such as Exile Mages, Nemesis, mini bosses, they'll no longer have it. Bosses that have had their boss ward removed have been compensated by increasing their health. All right, we're talking about some player balance changes now as well. The delicate balance of health, ward, offense, and defense between passive skills and items is a very integral part of Last Epoch, which is why they listen so closely to the player feedback in these areas. Often players find the specific classes or builds have an easier time scaling health, while the others excel more with ward. And so whenever one of them is substantially better than the other, they'll see, the meta, will change closely and it'll be tied around builds that can utilize whichever is better at the time. In recent patches, ward has been the more dominant meta for a few reasons. Introduction of 2 new masteries, Rune Master and Warlock, and a major buff to Sorcerer. These classes all had many good sources of skills and passives to invest in ward generation and their primary defense. This combined with ward, not only being strongly tied to the gear, made it very easy to obtain high amounts of ward while health required lots of itemization to do that. In Season 2, they're making a few changes to tighten up the gap between the 2 defensive options. And below, there are some details to tide us over until the patch notes come on the 11th, which I will be covering. So if you guys are interested, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. And here we are talking about ward now. Part of what made ward so powerful has been the intelligence attribute. It provides both damage scaling and ward retention, a very integral part of keeping the ward you gain as high as possible. This, in combination with passives and items that prove additional scaling for intelligence both in offense and defense, has made intelligence the easy choice for players focusing on the ward builds. Ward retention. To address this, we have reduced ward retention offered by the intelligence attribute by 2% per point from 4. However, due to how the ward decay formula works, as seen below, this doesn't just simply mean that the amount of ward you maintain is cut in half. Some of this ward retention can be added back through affixes exclusive to the Weaver idols, as shown below, but the overall amount of ward retention obtainable in Season 2 will be much lower than before. ward decay threshold. We're also offsetting this by increasing the amount of other lesser scaling stats and help you increase your ward pool through gear. These stats are ward per second and ward decay threshold. A new craftable hybrid affix will spawn on rings and amulets and help increase not only the rate you generate ward per second, but also raise your ward decay threshold, which lets you have more ward before it starts decaying. In terms of ward per second, alongside a few new affixes, they're also increasing the ward per second affix found on offhand catalyst and helmets and body armor for mages and acolytes, making it around 40% stronger across all tiers and making it a little more common to find in Atera. Health and endurance. In addition to season 2, comes with substantial buffs to health regeneration as well. This is mainly done by making added health regeneration less of a scarce stat, but also by slightly buffing the values of increased health regeneration. So the health regeneration affix around 50% across all tiers. The added health affix available on almost all equipment slots has been increased for tiers 4 to 7, but most notably maximum value of tier 5 by 20%, which is from 75 to 90, and tier 7 by 12.5%, which was 160 to 180. Rings and relics can now spawn with a new hybrid health affix, added health and added health regeneration. This hybrid affix provides less added health than the standard added health affix, but balances this by providing the added health regen. They're also making some changes to the increased health regen suffix. This suffix will spawn now on helmets, body armor, belts, rings, and relics, but as of season 2, it will no longer spawn on gloves. For legacy players, existing gloves with the suffix will remain as they are, but will no longer be upgradable at the forge. They also have a few other changes related to the health, which they've detailed below. Extra potion slot and potion health. Health gained on potion use is now increased by 50%. Potions now heal 50 plus 10 per level, up from 50 plus 5 per level. Endurance threshold. Moving into season 2, the endurance threshold suffix will only roll on belts. This will free up suffix slots that previously competed with the added health suffix, which will also increase your endurance threshold as this scales with your total health. This change was made as in most cases endurance threshold needlessly complicated build crafting and diluted the pool of available affixes without having a meaningful positive impact, especially for new players, when increasing your health with added health was the better option. Items from the previous seasons, helmets, gloves, rings, and relics with the endurance threshold suffix will remain as they are, so they won't be affected from the previous leagues or previous seasons. Now, global damage over time. More ward, more health, more crit avoidance, more dodge. Those are all going to help when a mob or boss hits you, but what about when an enemy lands an attack that's not a hit? So damage over time is another area players have let them know is a point they would like to see improved, especially in the empowered monoliths. As corruption begins to build, to help with this, they're in season 2, they are reducing the damage over time players take by 50% globally, as well as having the current damage over time bonuses enemies receive from corruption. And then they're going to go over some skills here. Just like other major updates, season 2 comes with a lot of changes to the different skills, while some skills near the ceiling are being brought down a notch, such as mana stack, static orb, sacrifice with high minion counts, Falcon builds especially dive bomb, and potion ballista. We're also buffing a significant number of skills that have been on the weaker side. As we prepare for the release of the full detailed breakdown with the patch notes, we can still share some of them here with you today. So they're gonna juicy. They're gonna give us a little looky see. Okay. All right. Let's see these skills, man. We got black holes base damage and damage effectiveness are doubled. The time dilation node provides 10% increased duration per point, and singularity grants 100% more damage, previously being 50%. Yeah, nice. Good buff. Flurry's damage effectiveness has been increased from 60 to 80%. Shuriken's damage effectiveness has been increased from 100 to 125. Acid Flask damage effectiveness has been increased from 100 to 125. And Alchematic Proficiency node grants 8% more damage per point, previously being only 3. Tornado's damage effectiveness has been increased from 75 to 125%. Maelstrom's damage effectiveness has been increased from 60 to 80. I mean, we're looking at a ton of buffs, man. Like, they're not kidding when they are, they're definitely buffing a significant number of skills, and I'm loving it. I cannot wait. Like, I don't think this is gonna like throw it over the top or anything with the values I'm seeing, but overall, I think the game's going to feel way better with the skills having this much of a increase. But yeah, this is a bunch of skills here, guys, on screen. You guys can see this here. I'm also going to leave the link to this down in the description below for you guys to check out. So if you want to read through this yourself, feel free to go to the description and click on that, and you'll be able to read exactly what I'm seeing here. But yeah, they have some new uniques that we can look at here as well. Oh no, these are not new. These are current uniques. So they just balance some. So they've balanced a few of the current uniques, and we're about to go over those right now. One of them being Eye of Reen. Eye of Reen no longer requires you to crit with a direct melee attack in order to gain a stack of Reen's Ire. This means it can once again be used with Warpath and other skills which hit with indirect attacks. Very cool, very cool. Then we have Boulder's Wrath. Boulder's Wrath left foes quaking in their boots, and now they are twice as angry. In Season 2, the unique will have a 100% chance to use Earthquake after using a non-channeled movement ability up to 2 times every 5 seconds. Then we have Eye of Storms, cloudy with the chance of Maelstrom. Not a chance anymore. From Season 2, the Eye of Storms unique will now cast Maelstrom every 3 seconds while also granting between 6 and 15% increased lightning damage per active Maelstrom, up from 6 to 8. Like, that's a pretty big increase, right? Went from 6 to 8 to 6 to 15%. That's a way bigger range. You can still increase the amount of Maelstrom cast every 3 seconds though by combining this unique with Maelstrom cast chance found on idols. Yo, these are some really cool changes. Then we have the Stormbreaker. Lightning rarely strikes twice, and in Season 2, instead of having a 36% chance to cast Lightning Strike when you use a skill that costs at least 10 mana, players using the Stormbreaker unique will gain a Storm stack. They directly use a melee attack and hit at least one enemy. Okay, that's good. These are really cool changes, really good changes to the current uniques. We got some new uniques apparently we're about to go over here as well. All right, so we have Elico's Innovation. Critical strike chance has always been an important when dealing damage. Now with this innovative new unique, it's also important for recovering health and mana. Very cool. I love that. Okay. You guys can check that out on screen. I'll leave that up on screen for you guys to check out for a second. Then we have Brewmaster's Buckle. Buckle up a drink until your heart is content. While it provides 4 extra potion slots, a hearty 20% to endurance, and a whopping plus 14 to vitality, the Brewmaster still has a secret hidden up their sleeve, or more accurately, in this belt that you'll only discover by wearing it. Interesting. Hidden mechanic here, maybe? Very interesting, these new uniques. They give us a peek into 2 of them there. So very cool, very cool. I like that. Okay, so that's it. That's gonna be it for this, guys. Make sure to stop by the channel again tomorrow. There's gonna be another one of these coming out. They're putting one of these out every single day. And tomorrow they're gonna be covering the quality of life and dungeon improvements and more, they say here. So really excited to hear about the dungeon improvements for sure. But yeah, let me know in the comments what you guys think about all these changes, all these current changes to the current skills and current uniques, and even these new uniques that are coming, and what you think about the Season 2 of Last Epoch. Make sure to hit that thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.